What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Another Friday, another episode of Why Are We Bullish? I'm on the road right now, smack dab in the middle of my road trip. I got another 9 days or so, then back home, and then off to Baltic Honey Badger, which I'm very, very excited about. But we're still doing the show. We're still bringing it to you, and we've got an awesome, awesome panel today. Very excited to have them all. I hope you guys are having a great week as well. Of course, this is live. Anything can happen. So I defer to my friend Bill here.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
If you have not already, please do like, subscribe, share, all those things. They help a ton getting this content in front of more eyeballs. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session.
HODL the Bitcoin.
Before we bring in our guests, let's take a quick look at where we are in the market right now. I am pulling up timechaincalendar.com and simultaneously I'm going to bring up that live chat over on the right-hand side of the screen. Everything you say in there from here on in is live for the world to see, for better or worse. Over at Time Chain Calendar, we're sitting at $60,629 per coin. A single US dollar will snag you 1,649 sats. In terms of fees, 5 sats per byte next block, and in terms of Bitcoin mined, 19.73 million. That is 93.98% of the total supply. We're going to give a quick shout out to our sponsors of the show. We'll be back in 1 minute to bring in our guests. Mission to enable independence by being one of the easiest and quickest ways to purchase Bitcoin in Canada and the US. And the best part about it, every buy goes directly into your own self-custody. They never hold your coins. You can add a Bitcoin address as part of onboarding. There's a transparent 1% spread, no hidden fees, no withdrawal fees. Plus they have KYC free sells and bill payments on their website. They're also a publicly traded company under the ticker BTCW on the TSXV. Check them out over at bitcoinwell.com. Check out my full tutorial on how to use them, and you can check out the links in the show notes down below and sign up today. Allows you to borrow against your Bitcoin in a non-custodial way. Collateral is held in a 3 of 4 distributed multi-sig with trusted parties. It provides institutional liquidity providers, loan periods of up to 5 years with flexible conditions and the best rates. And best of all, no rehypothecation of your funds. If you want to check them out today, head over to DEBIFI.com or hit the link in the show notes down below. All right, and we are back in. It's time to bring in our panel and get bullish with everybody. So I want to welcome to the stage Max, Lyn, and Maya, and let me make you guys a little bit larger. There we go. Thank you guys so much for being here on the show, and let's kick things off with a round of intros for anybody that may be unfamiliar. Max, I'm going to toss it to you first. Can you let people know who you are and what you do?
I'm CEO of DEBIFI. Obviously, I run the company, and I'm advisor to HODLHODL. I used to run that company, and I'm also organizer of Baltic Honey Badger, which you already mentioned. So that's quickly about me.
Awesome. Well, I'm stoked to be there and glad to have you on the show. I think the last time you were on, was that the Christmas show?
Yeah, that was a Christmas show. I think it was 2 years ago.
Long
overdue. Wasn't on the last one. Long overdue. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll toss it down to Lyn next. Lyn, welcome back to the show. Can you give yourself a quick intro as well?
Sure. So I write at Lyn Alden Investment Strategy about finance in general, including about Bitcoin. And I'm a general partner at EcoDeath Capital, which is a Bitcoin-focused venture fund.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have you back, and thanks for taking the time. And finally, we'll toss it over to Maya. First time on the show. Can you please give yourself an intro?
Thank you for having me. So my name is Maya Parbhoe. I'm CEO of Daedalus Labs, founder of Bitcoin Suriname, which is the Bitcoin community in Suriname and the circular economy. I've been a Bitcoiner since 2015 and running for office here in Suriname.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you guys all for joining again. We're going to be diving into the show here. And for anybody that's watching and you're unfamiliar, maybe this is your first time here, I'll give you a quick rundown of what's up. This show is called Why Are We Bullish? Really simple premise to the show. Each one of us has come with a reason for being bullish in and around Bitcoin. And this can take any form that we please. It could be a personal experience. It could be a news item, or maybe a book that we've read, or maybe an app or a device. Anything goes. And so the flow of the show is, number one, somebody's going to drop their reason for being bullish. This is their chance to rant and get off their chest whatever they're currently buzzing about. Number two, after that person gives their reason, all together we're going to riff on it. We're going to comment, add questions, go down whatever rabbit holes we decide to, and then finally we will rotate until each person has had a turn. So reason, riff, rotate, simple. And my number one tip to all the guests is, don't drop your reason for being bullish early. Make sure I ask you why you're bullish. Otherwise, it can get a little awkward if I go to ask you and you've already kind of blown your reason before the time. But with that, we're going to get us started here. And I'm going to, with my reason for being bullish here, I am, as I said, I'm on a road trip here on Vancouver Island. And Vancouver Island it's the size of some small countries, but it has a population of around 800,000 people. So it's very sparsely populated. And we've been kind of traveling around with the family and hitting a bunch of kind of smaller towns. And one of the towns that I just came from yesterday actually is called Eucalypt. And it's a small, I'd say even village on the Pacific side of Vancouver Island. Very few people in this area. Tofino, a little bit north of there, maybe more tourists, but Eucalypt is quite small. And in fact, the population of Eucalypt, I just took a quick peek, is 1,700 people. So barely anybody there. However, the other day, I wandered into the laundromat there to do up some of our laundry and get ready for the next leg of the trip. And lo and behold, I look at the bulletin board, and this is on the bulletin board in this town of 1,700 people. And this is a flyer for Bitcoin education. Come learn about the best form of money humankind has ever seen, which is happening today. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there for the meetup, but just a flyer, unbeknownst to me that this would be there as I'm doing my laundry in this small town of 1,700 people. And even there, Bitcoin has reached its tendrils into this little town. And so my reason for being bullish this week is the fact that there are so many little pockets of Bitcoiners in all corners of the globe, and there are individuals that, even in small towns maybe where there's not going to be a lot of people that turn up to things like this, they're still taking the initiative to reach out and help educate people and kind of point people towards this fun little monetary revolution that we're all a part of. And I tweeted out afterwards. I was trying to find out who was organizing it. And so obviously Bull Bitcoin here in Canada has been helping with a lot of local initiatives and everything. And so they were helping with this one. But the girl putting it on, her name on X is Empress Nakamoto or Fiona. But she is a Bitcoiner. She's been a Bitcoiner for the past 4 years and has never met another Bitcoiner in person. And so she's, I shot her a voice note and said, sorry that I can't make it to the meetup, but I really appreciate the initiative that she's taking in doing this. And so again, my reason for being bullish is just the fact that so many people, when they come to Bitcoin, they feel so moved by it that they have to do something. They want to be involved in some way, shape, or form, whether it be starting a company or starting something as simple as a small meetup, and creating or going to events. I love that people will go that extra mile and say, if there's not something where I am, then I'm going to be the one to do it. If not you, then who? And so I see this all over the place. I'm happy that we're doing it in my hometown with the SAP market and creating a local circular economy. But I just love the passion of individuals everywhere that are taking that initiative. So that's it's a simple little reason based on a fun little flyer that I saw the other day, but that's why I'm excited this week. So I'm curious, I'll pause it to you guys. Are there any initiatives that you have come across in the past few months or the past year or anything that leap out to you as something that you're interested in, or something that has kind of come across your purview of somebody taking the initiative to build a community in and around Bitcoin? And whoever wants to jump in can.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna start probably. So I think that in terms of community building, I was recently in Lugano, which is they have this Plan B initiative. I was lecturing in a business school. Shout out to Giacomo. And actually, I was amazed by the amount of work they're doing there locally, and by the amount of goods, services, whatever you can buy, you can trade, you can do with Bitcoin in that part of the Switzerland, particularly. And they're actually building an amazing community out there. They're building a huge Bitcoin hub out there. And in terms of community involvement, I think for me personally, that's one of the biggest highlights of the past few months. So that's my take on the community building.
That's awesome. I am going to be out in Lugano for the first time later on this year. So how did that come about? The whole Lugano thing. Are you familiar with how that started?
I think Tether, they have partnered or come together with the local municipality of Lugano, mayor of Lugano, and they have started this Plan B initiative. And they started to opening this providing opportunity to buy and sell goods with Bitcoin and Tether across the city. And now basically you can do everything in Lugano with Bitcoin. Furthermore, you can pay your taxes with Bitcoin. Furthermore, you can incorporate a company with Bitcoin or with USDT, which we successfully did with DEBIFI. So we're now incorporated in Lugano, which was pretty easy, comparing to other types of incorporation when you need a bank account, fiat, etc., etc. So 4 years they have been building this with all the conferences and all the stuff, and I think they're only starting doing this. So yeah,
that's really cool. I'm excited to see it. And again, as a person who's been kind of earning and living on Bitcoin since 2020, I'm all keen on being able to spend my sats over there. So I'll put that to the test, I guess. But, I'll Lyn or Maya, I don't know if you want to dive in here. Any initiatives that you've seen that you're excited about, or if you want to tag on to the Lugano or anything else.
It was actually pretty inspiring to go back to El Salvador in April after 3 years, after they made a legal tender, and just seeing the contrast from then and what it is now, and just how their attitudes have changed. You can just see it like in the general population, even though, they don't accept Bitcoin everywhere. Not everyone uses it, but you can see that people are hopeful. Like that is, I think that is the most impactful change that I saw there, where there was less fear. People were less concerned, like constantly telling me to be safe or not walk around alone. Instead of that, it was more hopeful, and everything felt kind of normal and open, and you could just go anywhere basically. And just seeing Bitcoin Beach change in those 3 years, that is amazing. What just the impact what Bitcoin can have.
I've got to say, April was my first time in El Salvador as well. And we never fully, I think we were in the general vicinity of each other, but we never really got to speak much while we were down there. So unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll get to see each other face to face soon enough. But yeah, Bitcoin Beach was cool. You can tell that something is happening there in terms of like it's growing quite a bit. Like the amount of construction projects and things that are happening in that particular area. I've made sure to take a picture of kind of the beachfront so that I could compare that in a decade and see kind of what happens from now to then, because it seems like things are on the cusp of changing quite a lot. And I will say that in Bitcoin Beach, I didn't touch fiat the entire time for anything while I was there. Obviously, other parts of the country or in the city, you can live on Bitcoin, but you would just have to be cognizant of where you're going to be getting everything that you need. But I mean, I figure that's to be expected. Like, you don't flip a switch and the entire country immediately is all accepting Bitcoin all at once. Like, it's going to be a gradual process. But there's a lot of interesting things going on there. And I really like, especially what Me Premier Bitcoin is doing in the schooling system there. I got to go to one of the graduations, which was really cool to see, and quiz some kids on Bitcoin and fiat as part of their graduation. And yeah, really, really enjoyed it. So I hope to go back again soon. Yeah. Lyn, have you been down to El Salvador?
I have not. I'd like to get down there eventually. I've mostly been going to the events in North America or in sometimes Europe, but not as many in Europe either. So I think to riff on that a little bit is there's no one conference that kind of, I think is like, it's like nothing of kind of top of mind, but it's the fact that how international it is compared to what it once was. So the fact that there's so much attention on, say, the Bitcoin conference and like, all the politics there and everything, and all the media questions kind of focusing on that. Whereas I find there's much more interest in the fact that there's countries all around the world doing Bitcoin events now, big or small or medium, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's the Africa Bitcoin conference, whether it's like you mentioned that little event on Vancouver Island, for example. The kind of rise of all these little Bitcoin hubs, I think, is one of the healthiest parts of the ecosystem. So people are all focused on things like, big custodians and whether like ETFs and whether nation states should adopt it. That's all like on one side of a discussion. But I think all these like smaller grassroots things, that's really like that's the roots of the whole space. And I think that's the blossoming of that just over the past few years has been really remarkable.
Yeah, I think that's where the real progress gets made. I mean, Bitcoin from its infancy, the whole idea behind it was bottom up, right? Like, nobody, you couldn't go to the powers that be and say, Satoshi didn't go and say, hey, I'm gonna create a currency that competes with the US dollar. Can I get permission to do this? No, it was we're gonna make it. It's gonna happen, and the world at large will have to then grapple with the fact that it exists. And the same kind of thing happened with Bitcoin Beach. It just came to fruition. And luckily, that was in a jurisdiction that became friendly to it. But either way, it had to be grappled with. This thing exists. This community exists. How are we going to handle that? And you're right. Like, all of these little microcosms, these tiny little Bitcoin communities that are popping up around the globe, that's really a difficult thing to stamp out. And I hope that there's more and more of them. And that's again, that ground up, when you've got, all these little communities popping up within a single country, and people are starting to use and live on Bitcoin day to day. It's really difficult to say you're not allowed to do that anymore. It's really difficult to stamp that out, especially when you are familiar with and have a relationship with the vendors and the people that you're actually using the money with. I think that's the strength of Bitcoin. Yeah. But with that, I'm going to I suppose, put a little bow on my topic here. But I will finish that topic by saying, if you're somewhere that there is no Bitcoin meetup and you're in search of something like that, again, take a page out of Fiona's book, who organized the meetup this evening in Eucalypt on Vancouver Island. And if there's not one there, start one yourself. If not you, then who? So with that, we're going to do a rotation. And Max, I'm going to toss it to you first, and I'm going to cue you up with the same question everybody gets. Why are you bullish?
Well, I'm actually bullish on Bitcoin because Honey Badger doesn't care. And the reason for that is actually that Bitcoin price gives zero fucks about politics and politicians, because even if the presidential candidate gives a very positive rant on the recent event in Nashville, which was an amazing event overall, and Bitcoin price doesn't give a fuck about that, this is actually makes me very bullish, because I think Bitcoin should be apolitical. Of course, like, we're entering the mass adoption stage, and everyone is willing to use Bitcoin as their campaign motto or whatever. But I'm actually really bullish about Bitcoin doesn't care about what politicians say. It just acts as a Bitcoin. Whether you're saying good things or bad things, the price just moves as it moves. And again, Honey Badger doesn't care. I'm pretty bullish about that. And I think the second thing, which goes from the first one, is that suddenly Bitcoin as a hot topic is on the table of most politicians out there. Everyone wants to add some comments, some feedback, whatever, to be in the stream, to be on the hype level. And I think that's also very bullish. So overall, it's pretty amazing.
I like that. It was a quick turnaround from I don't want to say begging, but it was a quick turnaround from kind of asking politicians to pay attention to us and treat us well, to seemingly some politicians starting to turn around and say, hey, maybe I should change my policies to be more favorable to this large group of people, this growing group of people. And that's an interesting thing. And I know that it's not across the political spectrum yet, but I think it will be. I think that over time, Bitcoiners as a whole, there will be more people that see it beneficial to cater a little bit to those that enjoy freedom money, and make sure that Bitcoiners aren't super upset with policies, or don't find your party in government as a hindrance to them. And I think that this will continue that way over time. Obviously, we're nowhere near out of the woods, but it's an interesting shift. It seemed to come a lot earlier than I expected, where politicians are trying to sway voters their way by being friendly to Bitcoin. That's a weird concept for me. I'm curious if the rest of you feel the same.
Yeah, I think one of the most bullish things from the conference was, even though a lot of the headline speakers were Republican, there was also a Democratic presence there as well. And then during the conference, over a dozen Congress people in the Democratic Party wrote a letter to the DNC saying our party has to be better on this topic. Like, we have to embrace this industry better than we have, because clearly they don't want to cede that to the other side. And I think that was not as big as, say, the headline speakers, but I think that's actually the fact that both sides are now kind of at least partially engaged. I think is super hopeful, because if you have a majority of one and you have a minority of another, it makes it easier to block really draconian things that could happen, or basically there's a pretty strong foothold there to let people keep building.
Lyn, I'm curious, What do you think the reason is that we saw that we've kind of currently seen the right end of the political spectrum lean into Bitcoin first before the left side?
I think I mean if you go to like a gold conference, it'll lean right as well. I mean, kind of appreciation of hard money is it just for whatever reason tends to be more on the right, maybe because if especially that small government type conservative, the idea that you have money that's not issued by a state is attractive to them, whereas that's generally less kind of foundational and for a lot of parts of the left. There are obviously some parts of the left that like that. I also think the environmental FUD over years probably played a role there. At least in the United States, the Democratic Party cares more about that topic. And so the fact that for many people they view it as like energy guzzling, inefficient, they've clung on to that narrative. And then people, when they say something publicly, it's hard to then pivot from it. If they had, previously believed all that research was real and was like, oh, look, it's really bad, spoiling the oceans, it's hard to walk that back. So I think it just takes time to get a little bit more embraced.
Yeah, fair enough. And I want to ask Maya as well, because I mean, obviously, Maya, you're running for office, so you see something there. What's your take on kind of the political leanings in and around Bitcoin and this new interest in it from politicians?
Well, to be honest, I've been lobbying for Bitcoin here for, I don't know, 2017 publicly, right, at the conferences with government and just trying to get it adopted in the same way as it was in El Salvador. And then that's why I also flew to El Salvador in 21, and it's helping a lot because people can actually see the impact that it's had on the economy there. People are a lot more receptive to it now. But I was a Bitcoiner before I ever decided to go into politics. Like, this is all Samson's fault. Like, I was anti-government. I'm anti-government. I want to have as least, the least amount of government involvement into people's lives. We want to reduce the size of government and government overreach. And I saw Bitcoin, and when I read the white paper, I saw it as a solution to all of the problems, I myself face in this country. And I like the struggles that I face with politicians here, with corruption here. Like, my dad was murdered because of corruption in this country, because of one of the banks here. So just from personal experience, I saw it as a solution to fix every problem that this country has. And over the last 6 years, you can actually see that it touches like every asset or facet of this country. It touches energy, it touches mining. We have a bauxite mine that they want to develop where they need a hydro dam for, but it would be much better if we do it for Bitcoin mining. We don't have a capital market. It's an Excel sheet that goes around on the laptop once a month right now. So no existing capital market, no lack of financial infrastructure, financially isolated. Our banks are we have one correspondent bank that they're able to work with. We don't have Visa, MasterCard, no payment rails. So I saw Bitcoin as a solution to, the problems that my country was facing. And, being anti-government, anti-establishment, usually on the other side as a political activist coming out against corruption. It's funny for me to see, someone like Trump going on stage and talking about Bitcoin when a few years ago he was saying that it was, dog shit. And not like, I listened to the speech, but halfway through I kind of popped out because it doesn't feel like he actually understands what what he's even talking about. Like, I have a node running right here, next to my foot, and I've been in this industry. I've known, Bitcoin long enough to actually be able to understand what it means and what it could potentially mean. I want to take it a step further than, using it as a reserve or like a part of our national reserve, because that's even still the same thing that is not what Bitcoin is, right? You're using it as a part of the central bank's reserve. Like, the Genesis block was very specific with that news article. Right? banks are getting bailed out again. This is exactly the system, the fractional reserve banking that we're fighting against. So I see an opportunity here because of the lack of infrastructure and because of the problems we're facing also with our currency. We're very small, agile. We have a lot of natural resources to take it a step further than El Salvador and replace our currency with Bitcoin.
That's exciting. I mean, it's one of those instances where it seems like the lack of infrastructure could be a net benefit because you just kind of get to leapfrog a little bit, right? You don't have to go through the landline stage to get to mobile phones, that kind of deal, right? So it's you get to leapfrog the banking infrastructure instead. Now, just to be sure, you're telling me you're not going to pick up the next drop of Donald Trump NFT cards. Is that correct? That's not in the cards for you? Okay.
Oh, fuck no. No.
Just wanted to make sure I wasn't positive, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting because I'm wondering, and maybe I'll get Lyn and Max's thoughts on this as well, but it kind of seems like when it comes to individuals, other than kind of the us weirdos that have kind of come in the middle and gotten this thing over the past few years, it seems like people that are kind of at the far ends of the spectrum in terms of wealth disparity seem to gravitate towards Bitcoin earlier. What I mean by that is the people that don't have a lot to lose by trying a new thing, that maybe are in a place where their currency isn't working for them well, like hyperinflation, or where they're just cut off from banking. They seem to get it earlier. And then on the far polar opposite end of the spectrum, the people who are actually quite well off, whose job it is to preserve purchasing power, are also starting to get it a little bit earlier, where they're going, well, where am I going to put my capital to preserve that purchasing power? And then it's kind of working its way inwards. Of course, again, barring some of the early weirdos that have found our way here. But I wonder if that might be the trajectory of nation states too. Like if it's going to be the ones that, don't have a ton to lose by trying something new, and the ones that have the most to lose. I feel like that may not be expected, but we're kind of seeing it play out in the US right now at a much earlier stage than I would have assumed. I would have assumed it would be plenty of other countries looking at, ever mentioning anything about Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. I never thought I would hear those words out of a US politician, at least at like this election cycle even. So I don't know. What do you guys think about this kind of like edges inwards idea?
Yeah, it's like, for example, here you're on the other end of the spectrum. We have a currency that doesn't work for us. We have a central bank that doesn't work at all. It doesn't even function as a traditional central bank should. No capital market. Like our economy is completely dependent on royalties. Mm-hmm. So we're on the complete other side of the spectrum. But because basically, we don't have that legacy financial system, as robust as it is, for example, in the US. And because we have a small population, I think we can be more agile and be more fast to adopt. And I think similar to, Latin America, the global South, that is where innovation is going to happen. That is where over the next decade, most of the technologies and innovations are going to be developed because you have that gap, right? That development gap. And I see us leapfrogging, but in the future, I envision Bitcoin just being global money. It just like no BRICS, no US dollar as a reserve currency anymore, but just Bitcoin being the ledger basically that the world lives on. And if we as a country can transition to that before like, yeah, it doesn't even matter if it's before or after, as long as we do it. We can actually be like fertile breeding ground for more innovation, for change that maybe can inspire the rest of the world, or be the foundation of a future that I want to see. You know, not a future that it's so very. It's like we're living in dystopia at the moment, at the brink of world war. You have riots all over the world. There's so many discrepancies and so many things that are happening at the same time. Like we're living in a movie, but it's not one with a happy ending. So I think we need to start chiseling away at building that future, you know, where we actually, where the whole world has a happy ending. So I think it is important that, you know, countries like ours, but also the US, of course, is important that we start adopting Bitcoin and building what we need on top of it to actually form a government. Like, for example, in ours, my goal is to be irrelevant, right? To privatize as much as I can, automate as much as I can, have us government spending be transparent, having our people be able to use Bitcoin. We're an import economy anyway. Our currency is useless. To make myself completely irrelevant, but things will need to have to be built to be able to have, you know, infrastructure, for example, publicly tendered or transparently tendered online and using Bitcoin at its core. Like for so much things, we still need to build an infrastructure for it. And I think this is where that transition happens, and hopefully we can be one of the first to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Lyn, I was going to quickly ask you, how much weight would you give the idea, like on the other end of the spectrum? How much weight would you give that strategic reserve idea? Like, do you think they get anywhere close to doing that at any point in the future here, or is that just like a pipe dream?
My guess is that this election cycle will probably won't see it. I don't think, for example, like Lummis has the most kind of like thorough description of how to do that. So she submitted an actual bill to do it rather than just kind of talk about doing it. It seems probably like that passing is not super likely, but I think it's useful. One of the things I said on another podcast recently was that the fact that politicians are sitting there discussing a strategic reserve for Bitcoin is great, because it means they're not doing other things about Bitcoin. They're not you know, figuring out how to block it or how to go after Bitcoiners. Unfortunately, there still is privacy issues that like, you know, some of their, like, not the politicians themselves, but like just deeper in, you know, like their Department of Justice and stuff goes after people just for kind of seeking privacy. But on the political level, at least, the fact that they're all talking about that is great, because it just gives more time for the ecosystem to keep building. So I don't really care too much if they end up doing a strategic reserve in the next few years. I would lean toward probably not that likely. But I'm glad that that's what they're focusing on.
Yeah. If we can pull the focus, if we could get a little bit more runway, then maybe we can build up enough tools that will be completely irrelevant anyways. So yeah, awesome. Well, I think Max, you're pretty on point with your bullishness then. Yeah, you know, Honey Badger doesn't care, and it'll continue to proliferate around the globe regardless.
It's still like it's still words, you know. You can say, like, politicians, they do that for a living. They say words, you know. Words doesn't mean actions. So you get and referring to your comment about the spectrum on the country level, I think it's too early to say that, because we have a couple of examples. Like El Salvador used to be a very poor country, adopted Bitcoin pretty well, but there's also a political will of president, you know, who changed a lot in El Salvador. And again, there's different opinions whether it was good or whether it was bad, but you know, there's always a certain person or a set of person who is doing some stuff. In many poor countries, there's no political will. They don't care. There's high level of corruption, and they're just happy like it is. So there's like less than 1% of the people who own 90% of the wealth of the country, and they're happy the way it is. right? And then you take US, where politicians started to talk, but they're starting to talk about it not because they suddenly researched that stuff. Most of them didn't that. So mostly there are two things why they started to doing that. First of all, it's election campaign, so they need to gather like donations, more people who will vote for them. And the good thing that they understand that Bitcoiners is becoming obviously stronger power, and the power that you need to care about them as well. But I think the major thing is that Wall Street people and money, huge money from Wall Street, are started adopting the Bitcoin. And in US, I think politicians largely follow the money, so it's pretty much interconnected. But then again, on the spectrum, you have like countries that are not poor and not huge as US. Like again, my favorite example is probably Switzerland, which is like 10 years ahead in terms of regulation. And you go outside in certain cantons, you go outside of the train station, and there will be a cantonal bank, which is like a local government bank, which will have a huge poster on the train station saying, "You got Bitcoin, come to us, we'll open you an account." So that's an amazing thing, Ben. You can go to the bank, you can deposit your Bitcoin. Again, it's custodial, and I'm completely against that, but that's already a step forward. And that's a pretty amazing example out there. And that's not a country that is poor, but it's also not a huge country in terms of GDP power if you will compare it to the global economy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
that's fair.
to add to that point, one thing we've kind of seen is that whether it's companies or countries, when there's a kind of a small number of decision makers that can just do something, like because like in a normal publicly traded company, even the CEO is not like they don't own a big share of the company. They're mostly caring about their their stock options and things like that. Whereas like in say MicroStrategy's case, it's the actual founder was still the CEO, and obviously owns a big percentage of the company, so can think 10 years ahead and can put significant changes in. That's why I've seen a lot of small businesses have adopted Bitcoin because only one or a few key deciders. And then when you go to using El Salvador as an example, or Kingdom of Bhutan or Switzerland, some of these smaller countries, whether they're impoverished or whether they're wealthy, the fact that they're just not super big, um, they kind of have a easier time getting through red tape and actually making a decision on something, and that seems to be a pattern that is playing out so far, which makes sense.
Yeah. The less you have to ask permission, the easier it is to use Bitcoin. Thus, I guess the sentiment in and around ground up being the way to go as well. So yeah, no, I definitely get that. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna if it's unless anybody else has anything else to tag on, I'm gonna put a bow on this topic as well. Okay. All right. So I'll round this one out. We're going to do another rotation here in a moment. I'm going to do a quick. We'll be back in 1 minute. I'm going to do our last shout out to our final sponsors, and we're going to give away some sats as well before we dive into Lyn's topic here. So we will be back in just a moment. See you guys in a sec. Has some of the best hardware on the market today to secure your Bitcoin. The Cold Card Q is an absolute powerhouse and is my daily driver. And on top of this, they have plenty of other goodies, including the Mark IV, the Tap Signer, Open Dimes, the Block Clock, and much more. If you head over to their website, make sure you use code BTC Sessions at checkout to get a nice discount. Links are in the show notes down below. Bitcoin Lightning wallet built with simplicity in mind. Spend and receive with ease, claim your own Lightning address, shop your favorite gift cards, and even earn rewards when you spend. Head over to speed.app to download the app on your mobile or desktop today and use the link down below to get 5,000 sats for free and have the chance to win even more. All right, we are back in, and before we jump to Lynn for her topic, we are going to give away some sats here really quick. I've been doing this every show, so get your Lightning wallets ready. Anybody who's watching, you're going to have a quick chance to win. We'll see how many sats. Anyways, this is a Bitcoin Well dashboard, and when you do sign up, or when you buy Bitcoin, or when you refer friends, you earn points, and then you can toss a coin in the well and win some sats. So I'm going to do that right now. And if you have an LN URL enabled Bitcoin wallet, Lightning wallet, then you can scan this. Whoever scans it first will get the sats. So in it goes, and 500 sats. So whoever scans that first, you're going to get you'll get a little top up on your Lightning wallet. So congrats whoever grabbed that. And with that, we're going to dive into our next topic. If you didn't get it, then you scrub back and see if you can grab it. But anyways, Lynn, I'm going to toss it to you. And I'm going to cue you up. Same question. Why are you bullish?
So I'm bullish because of the launch of Fedi, the kind of the main launch. It's been in beta mode for a while. EcoDeath is an investor in it, but just literally as a, like, I use it too. Like I'm excited for it because going back to my prior point around all these different communities, it really helps when they have tools that they can custody things locally instead of, say, put all their coins in like a big global exchange like Binance or something. You want, obviously, wherever possible, you want those coins local. And the fact that they have built-in privacy, I think, is a really big deal. The fact that they can add other things to it, like data storage or compute, kind of like a whole super app is how they put it. And basically, I think that it's really useful for scaling. And one of the things that also showed me early on, and Nostr reinforced it, is the importance of having communication with your wallet kind of like built in is super helpful. Because as you, one way of putting it is that all commerce is basically you're exchanging information and you're exchanging money. And so having both of those in the same app is really useful. So, for example, Fedi has internal chats that you can do, and you can attach money to your chats or request money in the chats, and then seeing the same action play out on Nostr, which is that you can communicate and send money from within the same app in many cases, is super useful. I think that basically with both of those technology stacks, the ecosystem's come a long way compared to even, say, 3 years ago, when Lightning was kind of reaching levels of liquidity that were making it really workable. The fact that now it's so intertwined with communication, I think, is really helpful. And one of the things I found interesting is that on Nostr, for example, amid all that communication, I think of Sats in unit of account. So normally we focus on it as it's either store of value or medium of exchange. Unit of account's kind of the later thing, because it's still volatile, so most people don't think heavily in terms of unit of account. But on Nostr, it's like you get a thousand Sats on your like post or something, or you're giving out Sats. I always just think of that number. I don't like, my mind doesn't even try to convert it to USD. It's just like that's the tipping environment on Nostr, and I think of it purely in Bitcoin terms. Um, and so that kind of set of things is what I find really bullish. The fact that tools are coming out that empower these communities and that tie money and communication together in a really good way.
I love the Fedi app, and just in general what Fedimints are enabling. I did do a tutorial on Fedi Bravo a few months back, but it seems like with the official launch the other day, there's a lot more bells and whistles that you can play with there, and the important thing here is anybody being able to start their own mint, right? So I'm quite excited to see this begin to play out, and what I'll really be excited about is when I start to see other applications also implementing Fedimints in the background, much like the RIP to Mutiny. I'm really sad to see that project gradually coming to a close towards the end of the year, but I hope a lot more projects consider having this as an easy onboarding mechanism as well. Just in when it comes to Lightning, it's really difficult when there are high fees to get somebody on a self-custodial Lightning wallet out the gate. Like they're not going to be opening a channel and doing and figuring out all that stuff out the gate. But if you could kind of have that either as just again a community of people that having a mint or using a Fedimint as like a, a first step as you build a balance before hitting maybe a swap button into your own Lightning channel eventually, if that's the route you want to go, that's fantastic. But with the Fedi app, again, you mentioned it, but having all in one, this is exactly what I want for our SAT market here in Calgary, to have all the merchants be able to just have like our local community on the app, and then have you can add mods in where you say, oh, here's the link to our meetup group, as long as you're part of this. They've separated out the mints and the communities now, I believe, but yeah, you can have a community on there and say, yeah, if you're part of the community, here's the link to say the Telegram group or the meetup app, or our like here's the NPub for the Nostr profile of the SAT market, or whatever you want to do. You can have all those important things there, and by default have things like Bitrefill for gift cards, or whatever you want to put. You can just have that as the home screen, and that's the uniform experience of everybody, and then they can add in additional things if they like, and communicate with everybody in the community all locally in the singular app. Again, that modularization of it makes it so convenient. I'm very, very happy about what I've seen previously, and to dive in again with the official launch here is I can't wait. But I'm curious if Maya or Max, have you guys at all tinkered with anything Fedimints? Or Maya's nodding, so go ahead.
Yeah. Well, actually, I met Obi when he started or was starting out with just at the protocol level, and I've been hounding him for years, and we've always, when I want to brainstorm with someone, he's always the person I call. So we've launched a federation here a few months ago for the Nova Star Soccer Academy. It's about 800 families, 800 kids. It's beautiful. So I'm very excited to see how that evolves, because I think it's going to be a big boost for just grassroots level adoption, and it's going to just be amazing for those families to be able to save in Bitcoin and just be able to transact in a way that they've never been able to previously. So I'm very excited about Fedi going live finally, and the launch finally, and to see how it rolls out here and the effect that it has and how it grows and changes over time, because it's not going to be static, of course. And as you said, you can add mods. And so I'm curious to see what kind of mods we get developed, for example, for here, or other countries, and things that we can apply, and how that creativity across borders is going to play out. I'm very curious to see how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that you had a mint down there for that community. That's cool. That's awesome. Max, how about yourself? Have you dabbled at all, or is this out of your wheelhouse?
No. But I'm really bullish about the tools that Bitcoiners are building for communities, especially for, everyone can use that in emerging markets. And as far as I had the conversation with Obi, that's one of the main markets for them. And we at HODLHODL always been very bullish about emerging markets, and everything that has been built for emerging markets. We believe that it's a great addition to all the set of tools that we have at the moment. So I'm actually bullish about Obi finally and the team finally releasing the mainnet version, and it really sounds like an exciting thing. I'm gonna try it out. I was actually excited about the use case that they presented at one of the conferences I was attending, like federation around the conference. So that was pretty amazing and a neat thing to have, but we'll see how it evolves. Overall, it looks very promising.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's been the conference app for a couple events that I've been. Like they did it in Prague, they did it in Madeira as well, and it works pretty well, especially in that context where you can walk into an event. There's a and you can put like a time limit on how long the mint is going to be there. But then just within the event, it's very easy to be transacting with merchants, especially if you're all part of the same mint. And I think Prague had it so that it let you know, hey, this is only for X number of days after the conference. If you leave any sats in here, we're going to donate it to the following cause, which I think is another great way of going about it. But I really like the privacy benefits of it, inherent to that, and the interoperability. I love the idea that you can be using the Fedi app, but it's interoperable with all of these other things that have different backends, and they're all kind of Lightning has kind of become that glue that's holding together all of these different systems. So like my original Fedi video that I did, I was using the Fedi app, and then I sent a transaction to a Cashew wallet and to Phoenix self-custodial Lightning, to a custodial Lightning wallet, to Aqua, which actually natively uses Liquid in the background, but uses bolts to swap natively. So like all of these different things that all the infrastructure is completely different, but Lightning connects them all seamlessly. So you don't really notice that, somebody else is holding Liquid and you're holding eCash, and somebody else is holding a Lightning balance in a channel. It just works. And that to me, while somebody on the outside looking in wouldn't really appreciate that. Oh yeah, whatever. I can just, we have that experience with our point of sales today. You go up and you tap with a debit card or a MasterCard or a Visa or a gift card or whatever. It all just kind of works. We're starting to see that with a Bitcoin experience, in my opinion. But, yeah. Is anybody, any other little thoughts in and around Fedi or what you'd like to see out of it? Any, is there a use case that pops out to anybody? The one that came to mind for me quite a bit, given that Obi came about his idea, through kind of HRF and everything, but the human rights aspect of it, I would love to see a mint with different human rights groups and NGOs, so that again you have those distributed keys, but you have communities that can partake in it. It again, with the federation having keys in different jurisdictions, it's a prevention mechanism of just having the whole thing shut down. I think that could be a unique use case. I don't know if anybody's heard rumblings of this. I don't know, Lynn, you've been to some of the HRF events, but is there anything developing in that area that you're aware of?
Well, that would be really cool. I mean, Fedi did partner with Save the Children to do a trial using the product. And one thing that I've kind of come to learn is that a lot of these aid organizations actually do use Bitcoin, because when they're moving money around, often in challenging environments, basically environments that need aid, they often don't have the best infrastructure, or there's other frictions. And so sometimes they do turn to Bitcoin, and they don't necessarily publicize that fact because some of their donors might have bad perceptions around Bitcoin. And they might think it's bad for the environment, or they might just whatever the FUD is. So the fact that they're just quietly using it for its utility is like a really big deal. And tools like this or other tools, anything that can make it easier for them to do what they're trying to do, I think that increases the odds that they'll actually use it. And the more like embedded it can be in all these different organizations and all these different countries, the better it is, the more resistant it is to attack, when it's kind of like entrenched in a lot of people's daily lives and businesses and aid organizations.
Sorry, my mute there. Yeah, it's I think it'll play a larger and larger role over time. And again, just the convenience of in the context of Fedi having the privacy baked in, along with the instant feeless transactions within the mint, and the modularity of all those applications and being able to create communities. I think that's super important, along with all the communication. So very excited to dive into it again and start tinkering. But with that, we'll put a bow on that conversation as well, and we're going to do one final rotation here. So Maya, thank you for being so patient. You are up next. I'll cue you up with the same question everybody gets. Why are you bullish?
I'm bullish on corn. Yeah, because of Suriname. Just being here, doing both sides, top down, seeing so many projects, so many possibilities. From rural villages, and you just asked about a Fedimint. They don't have any banking access. They're unbankable. They don't have addresses. They don't have ID, or not all of them do. And just the cost for them to use SRD is the transportation just to the city to be able to use it is more than they earn in 3 months, for example. So I can really see it playing a role in those communities, and some that government goes to during elections, but then doesn't touch for the next 5 years. So I can really see it like having an impact there. We've been working for the last year and a half on getting solar projects off the ground for those villages, and incorporating mining into it so that it becomes a sustainable business model. So Bitcoin actually incentivizes the increase in capacity of their solar grids. Things like that. The conference here in November, just seeing education, Mi Primer take off or start here, seeing Trezor Academy start here, and seeing how people are actually engaging. That's what's making me blush at the moment.
That's awesome. I wasn't super familiar with how many initiatives were kind of happening in your region, but that's fantastic to hear. And as you pointed out, you're a very energy rich area, correct? And so there's some definite incentives to be integrating Bitcoin mining where you are, correct?
Yeah, so we have a lot of natural resources, gold, oil. We have massive offshore oil finds. It's estimated that we have more oil than Qatar. So starting to 2028, we'll be receiving about 2.8 billion in royalties. So you need to start thinking about energy transition strategy. You need to be thinking about things like our sovereign wealth fund. How are we going to structure it in a way that government can't steal it again, or pawn it off again, or mortgages, leverage it again. So it's very exciting to see all of the different aspects that Bitcoin touches here. And like we have 450 to 650 megawatt hydropower capacity just in that old Alcoa project. Instead of bauxite mining, Bitcoin mining has a much smaller footprint. It'll damage the environment less. We're 93% forested, so you want to preserve that preserved rainforest. And just seeing all of this happen on the ground, there's more that I'm even mentioning. We have we have meetups, we have education, the opportunity in the capital market. Like our Minister of Foreign Affairs, for example, was even talking to Samson about distributing shares of the state-owned refinery on Liquid. So there's opportunities for either Liquid or Lightning just launched finally. Is it still called Taro or Taproot Assets?
Yep.
So yeah, so that finally is something we can tinker with and be able to actually issue shares here in a different way than the traditional capital markets. So I see a lot of opportunity, and I see just a lot happening on the ground. And I see this, like, I can just see it so clearly. Suriname being like the feeding ground for the rest of the world, and like an example for the rest of the world. A step further than El Salvador, seeing our hydro dam, our sovereign wealth fund, just the way that we manage our economy to actually develop this country transparently. with Bitcoin, and I see my people, our people, the Surinamese, being able to earn in sats, seeing instead of prices increase in the supermarket, seeing them decrease in terms of fiat value over time. But just like Lyn mentioned, on Nostr, you don't even think about the fiat value anymore. I don't care about the price. Like, if you've been in enough cycles and you've been in Bitcoin long enough, you don't care about the price. It's going to exponentially increase in turn in relation to fiat. But the fiat price doesn't matter because the world is going to be repriced in Bitcoin, right? Everything's going back to its utility value. Everything's going to go back to actually not being manipulated or hyperinflated. So how can we build this country in a way where it's going to be ready for that world, or be a part of that world, be one of the bricks, that lays the foundation for that world?
What would you say are some of the biggest hurdles to realizing that vision? What stands in your way, or what do you have to get over in order to achieve something like that?
Well, I say not get liquidated. That would be an important one because
Yes.
it is still, we're still an emerging market. It is still a bit, Latin America is still a bit iffy in terms of its leaders. So my opponents are not the friendliest guys or the most, with a clean sheet or clean record. So that would be a risk. But a free man doesn't ask for permission. So whether I win these elections or not, we're going on as a full train, and we're figuring this. There's no stopping this train. We're figuring out how we're getting it done, whether government approves it or not. So whether it's, in a way that, like, the same way I structured Daedalus is, government can't stop me now. They can't stop me to with a REIT, get people off mortgages here or develop properties here. So we figure a way out. It doesn't matter what happens. And our biggest hurdle would be at the moment, because I refused to join the older, larger parties because of the old politics and, the old politicians. I think it would make it more difficult for me to actually achieve this. So we went with a smaller party called 597, which is just technocrats, non-politicians, people that actually want to see the change in this country. And I think, raising funding, that's our hurdle. But we're smart, we're agile, we bootstrap it if we need to. So I don't see any hurdles. We'll figure it out, whichever way.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if Max or Lyn, you want to tag in there anything, questions, comments about what Maya's attempting down in Suriname or not. But
I like the idea of doing, before just asking permission, like the fact that the Bitcoin Beach eventually inspired kind of the whole nation around itself. I think that model clearly works well. And when a community shows like a tool is working for them, eventually it's possible to get the government on your side potentially. Depends on the government in question. But if it's entrenched enough and it's providing value to the country, and it changes their incentive calculus about wanting to support it rather than oppose it. I guess if I had a question, I would say, like, what tools do you think are still useful, like still needed in an environment like that? Like whether it's like apps or just other, like what would make it easier compared to what was around currently or what was around a few years ago?
Well, the main problem is that we don't have access to a lot here.
Yeah.
So no exchanges. It's pretty hard to buy Bitcoin. It's like the Blink vouchers, Azteco, things like that. Were like a godsend for a market like this. But we don't have PayPal. We can't use Strike. So even the tools that are already available out there, we can't use. I like the NFC cards. That makes it very easy for people to, just get a card, be able to use it. But I think the main tools that we need here, especially in terms of companies being able to raise capital, issue an asset. There's only one open source exchange, and it's not very user friendly. So we need something simpler for people to be able to buy and sell shares or own shares in in local companies that actually generate value, or companies that are state owned right now that we prefer to see privatized, like our state oil refinery. Methods of distribution, for example, royalties, right? From that sovereign wealth fund, like how do you distribute capital directly to multiple people, to the entire population? For example, something that I mentioned earlier, in infrastructure development. I've been in building roads for over a decade. And how do you publicly tender, for example, a road, make a project completely transparent using blockchain? How, like for example, TrueVote, that's something that was recently developed to solve for voting. But once you're elected, how do you actually use Bitcoin to not get a capital market like we have in the US, which is, basically inflated, overvalued, not in relation to the fundamentals of any of those companies, and highly manipulated? How do we develop a decentralized open source exchange, or that functionality? How would that work here? Do we use Liquid? Do we use Taproot assets? Like what? How does that part of the economy actually look like on Bitcoin? Because not everybody is a successful entrepreneur, right? Not everybody can build a business that scales. Not everybody can generate a significant amount of returns, but being able to own a stake in one of those companies is still valuable to the rest of the population. So infrastructure like that I feel still pretty much missing, and will need to be developed for us.
Awesome. Max, I don't know if you have anything else that you wanted to tag in or comment or ask or anything before we round.
Probably no, but just in general, I've been always very bullish about Latin America and Central America, so these countries, and because I think that's a Bitcoin continent out there, very highly educated population, a lot of unbanked people, but they do understand the value of Bitcoin. And if you look at Argentina, for example, huge inflation, or Venezuela, you don't need to sell Bitcoin to these people. They understand the value right away. And I think in general, Latin America and Central America has a huge potential in adopting Bitcoin, mostly, of course, because of the economical issues that they have, but also because they have a great example, which is El Salvador.
Absolutely. I just wanted to let you guys know that Yellow says hi, and he came here for the macro. So, figured I'd give him a quick shout out there. But awesome. So guys, I'm gonna start rounding us out here. I'm conscious of time, but one thing I like to do at the very end of the show is just do a quick last round of. If you have any final thoughts that you'd like to get off your chest, or just a general takeaway from the episode, but more importantly, a recommendation. So recommendation can take any form that you like. It could be as simple as a piece of advice that you wish you had heard early in your Bitcoin journey, or maybe it's a book or a video that you recently watched, or an app to try out, or a device, or something that you think somebody might find useful that was watching this show. So I'll get us started so you can kind of stew for a second over that. But I feel like my general takeaway from the episode is maybe a little hint of not asking permission is what the doctor ordered. And I love seeing that from everybody. And again, I guess to to jump back to my own topic, just people taking the initiative to do and build things on their own, and those little instances around the globe will take the world by storm as enough of them begin to pop up. It's going to be very hard to ignore when every town has a passionate group of Bitcoiners that are beginning to make little daily changes in their lives. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and being a part of it myself. In terms of recommendations, I'm gonna, again, jumping back to my original topic, go out there and meet your local Bitcoiners in your local community. And if you don't have one, then form one. It is very, very rewarding the first time that you meet another Bitcoiner and realize that you're not crazy. That's a very nice thing to encounter. And again, the first time that I met another Bitcoiner, it was a great experience, like sitting down, having a conversation that I was passionate about alongside the person, not talking at one of my family members instead, which, they're very kind and they'll listen, but it's nice when somebody actually wants to hear it too. So go and do that. Meet your Bitcoiners, build a community where you are, and yeah, just start partaking and building in your own way. But I'll toss it over to Max. Max, do you have any final thoughts or takeaways, and more importantly, a recommendation for people to check out?
So my recommendation, I've freezed. Sorry. So my final thoughts is just to ignore the fuzz, the buzz, the hype. Ignore what people saying, politicians, whatever. Just, stack sats, stay humble, build cool stuff, educate people around you. And obviously my biased recommendation is the come to Baltic Honey Badger. It's going to be amazing. And if you cannot be in Riga, we'll have a live stream. Watch the live stream. It's going to be really, really good this year. So enjoy the show.
100%. I can't wait to be there. It's going to be a blast. Lyn, I'll toss it to you. Final thoughts, recommendations. Go ahead.
I think my final thoughts, like my takeaway from this, is that Bitcoin has kind of graduated to the community level. So, in the early days, it was like a bunch of individuals, and like you mentioned, a lot of times they didn't even meet other Bitcoiners. And now that like the network is 15 years in, it's at a bigger scale, there's starting to be more dense communities building around it, and it's still that same kind of bottom up kind of direction, except it's on a bigger level. And I guess the recommendation to go along with that is try some of those tools, whether it's Fedi, whether it's Noster clients, whether it's Orange Pill app, anything that kind of has communication and money kind of built together, either online or in a local community or both. I think that's really where the level is now, and I just think those tools are super useful. I think the whole vibe of that whole kind of every country is going to have multiple little hubs, because one of the big challenging things about Bitcoin is that like it's actually one of the most acceptable monies worldwide. Meaning, for example, like if I bring an Egyptian pound with me outside of Egypt, there's almost nothing I can do with it. Whereas Bitcoin, you can actually take it to cities around the world, and you can actually find ways to spend it or find someone to convert it for you, much easier than you ironically can with most fiat currencies. But until somewhat recently, there hasn't been these dense areas. Like in Egypt, the Egyptian pound is super liquid in Egypt. You can just it's very easy to obviously spend with it there, and Bitcoin has kind of lacked that. But as these little communities build up, and there's like more density in one spot, kind of where you can actually like reliably spend it, that's really powerful. And I think that it's the fact that that's kind of materializing is a big deal.
Awesome. Love that. Maya, I'm going to toss to you as well. Final thoughts, recommendations. Go ahead.
Well, I'd ask anyone and everyone that is involved in the community in whatever way you can help, like even if it's making your app available in Suriname, that's been challenging with some of the existing apps already, but we have gotten a lot available here. If if you're a, I don't know, if you're a comedian, come help here. Or it doesn't really matter. There's so much grassroots adoption happening on the ground, and there's so much to do. If you want to build an exchange, fuck, come here and build it here. From the ground up, from scratch. We need as much help as we can get. And for recommendation, I'm going to do the same as Max for Baltic Honey Badger. FOMO, by the way, it was really fun the last time. But come to Suriname to our conference in November, because that's it's completely focused on the locals and making clear to the locals what Bitcoin is, what it offers, and what it offers to the country and the community. So it's like my major orange pilling event here. So visit, help orange pill, help orange pill merchants, spend some sats here, stack some sats here, and learn more and help out a little bit.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was great. Thank you all so much. That was a blast. Everybody that was watching, to the 3,200 some odd people that tuned in over the course of the episode here, make sure you follow everybody. I've got the links for them down below. Check out what they're up to and follow along from there. But to the panel, thank you all for spending a Friday evening, or for Max probably by now a Saturday morning, getting bullish with me. I appreciate you all, and of course you're all welcome back anytime.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys. See you later. Okay, and everybody, thank you for joining in and watching. Everybody in the chat, loved having you here. And of course, please do make sure that you like, sub, share, all those things. Super, super important. As I said, I'm going to be at Baltic Honey Badger coming up pretty quick here. I'll be getting into town, I think, on the 21st of August. And they've got Nostriga going on a couple days before Baltic Honey Badger. They've also got a Noob Day. I'm going to be getting in, I think, that evening. So I'm going to be missing Noob Day, unfortunately. But if you're there early, make sure you hit that up. It's going to be a lot of fun. Very much looking forward to it. And of course, after Baltic Honey Badger, they always have their BTC Pay Server Day as well. So anyways, if you're going to make it out, let me know. Hopefully we can cross paths there as well. If you do need tickets still, you can still use code BTC Sessions to get a discount. I think it's 10% off, but make sure you make it out if you are going to be out that way. Other than that, of course, if you want to help the show in another way, you can hit up the previously mentioned sponsors, all in the show notes down below. And if you're perusing the channel and checking out the tutorials, and you need a little bit of extra help, some hand-holding with whatever you're doing in your Bitcoin journey, reach out to my team over at bitcoinmentor.io. We've got an incredible group of Bitcoin educators who can help you through just about anything, whether it's obtaining Bitcoin, whether it is hot wallets, hardware, multisig, running a node, home mining as a curiosity, you name it, they can help you through it. So again, reach out at bitcoinmentor.io. And with that, I am out. Have yourselves a wonderful day or evening, wherever you may be. I'll see you guys next time for your daily session.
HODL the Bitcoin.